Tonight, we spoke about making change real, how we can utilize the energy of this time and really work on ourselves, free ourselves. We've been doing the same thing wrong for so many years, but guess what? There's another way. We can change. It was really wonderful how many people chimed in with their tips, strategies, things that work for them, things that could work for you. Hope you'll enjoy. It looks like we're all just doing what we have to do, doing what God put on our plate. And we don't, it's a lot of times when you look at someone else's plate, their plate looks like more appetizing, more enticing. I want to be busy with that and not with this. But honestly, if you're busy with this, it's just like being busy with that. We're all trucking. We all are carrying a lot. If you know someone and they have no problems and they have nothing, no stress, you just don't know them. We all have what we're contending with. Some obviously are contending with more, and some are contending with less, but we say God only gives you what you can handle. So if someone's contending with less, maybe they have less resources to handle it. So their smaller plate could feel as enormous as maybe your bigger plate, or even more enormous than your plate. Maybe that little thing they're contending with takes over everything and drains them and saps them and overwhelms them far more than what you're doing. So we can never judge someone else's life as they got it easier, they got it better this, they got it better that. We have no clue. We know God. We know it's all God. We know God has enormous love for us. And everything he's doing is part of that love. And we appreciate that and we're grateful for that. And then we move and we try to grow and we try to come closer and closer and closer to him. Story of our existence. So why did I pick this topic? The reason why I picked this topic of character development is because we are in the days that I think we mentioned, called the counting of the Omer. And this started the night after the Exodus, which means exactly 4 weeks ago. Well, no, 4 weeks ago minus plus a day. Or in a day from now, it'll be 4 weeks ago. 4 weeks ago plus minus 1 day, however you figure that out the other way. But the Jews left Egypt. Today was the 14th. A month ago on the 14th is when they had their Paschal sacrifice. Tomorrow is the 15th. A month ago on the 15th is the Exodus. And the 15th at night, what will be Monday night, a month ago. So then a month ago wasn't a Monday, it was a Saturday night. The Jews started counting. And they started counting for 49 days from the Exodus until the giving of the Torah. Because they knew that the purpose of the Exodus was to make them God's people, which meant to receive the Torah. That was like the doctrine that made them God's people. And they were so not ready. So on one hand, the count is like, oh, this is so exciting. And we're counting. But you would sort of think human nature. If you know what's happening in 50 days, you would say day 50, day 49, day 48, they get to day 22, then you get to day 13, they get to day 5, they get to day 4, 3, 2, 1. We got it. But they didn't count like that. They counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, till 47, 48, 49. And the next day they got the Torah. So why were they counting like that? Because really their count wasn't only, which it was on one level, anticipation for getting the Torah, but it was also a count upward of refinement of self to be able to receive God's will and wisdom. The Torah is God's will and wisdom. To be on the level to be God's people. That's why we see actually that when the Jews left Egypt, it said they ran away. The nation fled. And the question is, who are they running from? Pharaoh said, bye, go. All the Egyptians were like, bye, go, bye. So nice to see you, bye. So who are they running from? Nobody was chasing them. Nobody wanted them back. I mean, a week later they did. But at that moment, nobody wanted them back. There was, bye, take everything we own and go. So who are they running from? So the sages explain this, actually, explained in a Hasidic work called the Tanya, the foundational work of Chabad Hasidus, that they were running from themselves. They were running from the evil inside of themselves. Because though they left Egypt, but Egypt didn't leave them. Egypt was inside of them. And the evil was so strong, was so intense, they were literally running from it. They were so low, we were told that spiritually they were on what's called the 49th level of impurity. If they fell just one more teensy drop, we're told that God himself wouldn't have been able to take them out, whatever that means. So obviously God can do anything. They would have been that immersed in evil, they would have been unredeemable. And the same way there are 50 levels of impurity, and they were on the 49th of the 50, there are 50 levels of holiness. And in these 49 days, they traveled from the 49th level of impurity, from so impure that if they fell to the 50th, they would be like gone, all the way up to the 49th level of holiness. So holy that we're told in a certain sense the 50th gate is unattainable to humans, or in very spiritual rare moments, or now our generation because we're so close to redemption, but generally pretty unattainable. So this is the enormous movement that happened over these 49 days of counting. And that's why it's really good time to work on ourselves, because every time that we are experiencing a certain spiritual remembering the historical past, we're also opening ourselves up to that same energy. So in the time of Passover, as we think about the Exodus and the details and the redemption, we're allowing ourselves to access that energy and experience our own personal redemption. And Sukkot, to get in that joy, and Shavuot, to get God's will and wisdom, the Torah. So during these days of the Omer count, we're also having our personal count to move closer and closer to God by personal refinement, just as they move closer and closer to God by their personal refinement. Well, that's why this is an appropriate topic for these days. And as Becca said, she never connected those dots before. So I appreciate hearing that, because it's always nice to be like, oh, yeah, that's true. Aha. It's always nice, those aha moments. So that's the idea, like when we got out of Egypt, the godly soul was all inspired, but our animal was still, very animal-like. And this process of these 49 days is really to change us and make us refined, godly people able to absorb God's will and wisdom when he's going to completely expose himself and reveal himself and share himself with us 50 days later by the giving of the Torah. So that's why this is the work of the time to really, now again, that doesn't mean you can't work on yourself in June, and you should, and you can't work on yourself in November, and you should. It's always great to work on our character. There's never no, that's a bad time to do that. But these days are even more auspicious, even more like, oh, this is a good time. This is where God's help is going to really grease those wheels and make it happen easier. So what I want to share is just some ideas, some tips, so to speak, that can help us change, because change is very hard. Our habits are very ingrained. We might be doing the same thing wrong for the past 50 years, or the past 60 years, the past 70 years. And it just means it's like our knee-jerk response. Now, it doesn't mean it's working. We can look and say, this isn't working. So why do I keep doing the same thing that doesn't work? Well, because that's what I naturally do. So I know it doesn't work, but maybe this time it's going to work. Well, it hasn't worked for the past 50 years, but I think it's going to work this time. Well, maybe this time it'll work. Well, it didn't work this time either. So maybe we need to change. So just some tips on how to change, and that the change should be lasting. Before I share some of my ideas, anyone like to share from their own? Have they changed a character trait in a way that's really lasted? And if so, what'd you do? How'd you get yourself to do it? What happened? What were you thinking? What strategy did you use?
When I'm trying to change anything, I think there's just a few different things that I do. I use the self-talk sometimes, sometimes I'm wanting to do something, but maybe I forget or whatever, get distracted. And, then I kind of yell at myself a little bit. It's like, no, you were going to do this thing, remember, and then I repeat it to myself. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. And then other times, if it's maybe a habit that I'm trying to create, that I didn't have, that I need to have, then sometimes I'll involve other people, and say, okay, help me remember this. If you see me not doing this, tell me to do it. I won't, even if I get mad, I'll get over it, tell me to do it. All right. And so sometimes I involve, those are really the two main things.
Okay, and it works. And you see that you have. Amazing, thank you. Anyone else? See some strategies they use that worked? Jenny?
Yes, Miss Toren. For me, when I want to change something in my life or to myself, first I just focus and just like what she said, but the thing is, I ask myself what to gain and what I'm gonna lose if I change. So I always look on the, pros and cons. And then if I think that, it's gonna be good for me, it's gonna give me a peace of mind, then I focus on that and then I motivate myself. And then sometimes, I listen to YouTube and okay, how can I start, being happy? So I listen, I do research, and then that's how it starts, the change. And then, the prayer also that, that God will, help me to change, because I cannot do it by myself only. I need Hashem.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I like that. So it's very, like you're saying, calculated. What's the gain and what's the loss? And I think that's we did that actually last week in the ethics of the fathers. Remember, I think that was like the last idea we spoke about. The what's the gain and what's the loss of doing the sin or not doing the sin. So that's a very steeped in tradition, good approach. That works. That's great. Anyone else? Christelle, Corey, any times you've really changed something yourself and how you did it? I just think it's nice to share, because someone could say like, oh, I like Becca's approach, or oh, I could do like Jenny did. And it just helps sometimes sharing other people's practical tips that worked for them.
I was going to say, I try to get to the reason why I do something specifically. Like, why is it whenever this is happening, I have this reaction? And then sometimes if I'm able to pinpoint what's going on internally that causes me to have the reaction that I'm wanting to change, then it helps me to change it. Have a little bit of, empathy for myself. Like, oh, okay, yes, it's perfectly okay that you feel like this when this happens. However, this is not an appropriate response. So this is what we're going to do next time. I don't know.
Great. That makes a lot of sense. I think that makes perfect sense. And that's, I always feel when we do something, when we're misbehaving, when we're doing something that's not the right way to behave, there's a reason why we do it. It's, as I view it, it feeds us in a certain way. Because if it didn't, why would I do it? Why would I, if I see a kid with a temper tantrum, what are they enjoying by screaming and kicking? Like, what are they gaining? But they're gaining something, because if they weren't gaining something, they wouldn't be doing it. So that's a very good approach, which is sort of like what Jenny was saying about the loss and gain of like, why am I doing this? What is it feeding me? What am I gaining by doing this? Oh, all right. So that's a gain. But guess what? The gain's not worth it. That's a gain, but I'll pass on that gain. I'll forego the gain because there's a bigger gain in doing it properly. So that's great. I like that. That seems very practical. I think something something I think that helps, that possibly helps, if you want to create long-lasting change and you're struggling in your interpersonal character traits, anger, irritation, outrage, blaming, shaming, criticizing, belittling, denigrating, all those pantheon of horrible stuff, is to sometimes recognize how addictive these things really are. It could really be like an addictive behavior, an addictive pattern. If you first feel like this physical response, like a tension or a discomfort in your body, and then your brain gets involved and you start interpreting what's going on not your way. And then you create this storyline. We all build stories in our brain. Watch for those castles in the sand. We're all really good at it. Some people I speak to, I'm like, oh, you just build a whole story out of nothing. It's so easy to see in someone else. So we build this storyline in our brain to justify our inappropriate emotion. Such incompetence. How could he, she, they do this to me? Don't they realize? Did they do this on purpose? Maybe they're just ignorant. We create this whole story in our brain. And then we have full permission to do whatever negative thing we do, anger, criticism, belittling, whatever, blame, shame, ridicule, whatever we're doing to the other person, because we've already created the storyline, we've created the justification, we're now fully in our right to behave this way. So sometimes if we recognize it as such and we say, wait, am I addicted to criticizing people? Am I addicted to raising my voice and screaming? Am I addicted to indulging in sulking? Am I addicted to my anger? And if we think of it that way, we could say, I don't want to be a slave to my addictions. I don't want to be under these really, I don't want this to be controlling. Sometimes, we're told to heal, there's two broad steps. The first step is truly to be aware of the sickness. And the second step is to really believe in the cure. Now, some of us fall on our face in the first step and we don't think we have any problems. But most people have an easier time recognizing their problems and a harder time believing they'll change. Harder time believing tomorrow or today could be different. But they're not just for the rest of their life going to be doing the same wrong behaviors. They can't envision themselves getting off this treadmill. And that's why we really have to envision that. And let's say we're saying, you realize, yeah, my anger is pretty addictive. My jealousy is pretty addictive. My denigration of other people is pretty addictive. To really, really, really believe I can change, believe in the cure. And then what I think is the best thing, which we're going to discuss soon, is what I call acting as if. Our sages say actions create an inner reality. I have seen that for myself as the strongest thing that's ever helped me change a character trait, is acting as if I was different. And as I continue acting as if I was different, I actually become different. But the first step in that is recognizing the sickness. And again, it really might be almost like an addiction or a true addiction. And believing I am going to change, believing in the cure, believing that I don't have to act this way. I have free choice. Any moment I can reshape myself. And then walking the walk to do it, like taking Becca's idea, which was good, or Jenny's, or Chriselle's, all of which were good, or the ones I'm going to give you, and just keep with it. And you will see that you can change. I think something else that's good to recognize as a preliminary is that a lot of these negative traits that we fall prey to, that we indulge in, create stress, emotional stress, mental stress, physical stress, and stress is harmful to you. When you're all stressed because this person behaved this way and how could this person do this to me, and you're all building up inside of you emotionally and physically, it's totally wearying. It's totally draining. It's totally depleting you. So like, just protect yourself from your own reactions that are so unhealthy for you. And really just breathe deeply, do whatever strategies you choose, mine or anybody else's. If they work, they're great. And prioritize your own inner health over indulging in these addictions of anger and frustration. So, of course, you're giving your husband a gift and you're giving your kids a gift, but you're also giving yourself a very big gift, because this is much more beneficial and healthy for you. Has anybody ever seen this connection between stress and how it harms themselves? Has anyone experienced it? Becca's nodding. She has. Anyone else? Anyone else seen that link from allowing themselves to feel such stress and then how it is so draining and depleting or creates unhealthy effects in your own body? And Corey said yes.
Yes,
And
Mrs.
Jenny?
Yes.
So a lot of us have get it. So sometimes you have to just tell yourself, I'm just being selfish. I'm so saint-like. I'm not so saint-like. I'm very human. But I selfishly want to guard my own health. I selfishly want to protect myself. I want to protect myself from harm inflicted by me on me. And therefore, I'm not going to allow myself to fall into an emotional space that creates all this stress. I'm going to breathe deeply and reject it. Breathe deeply and blow it out. I'm not going there. I have to protect myself. I have to protect myself. And this is going to harm me. So I'm not absorbing it. I'm rejecting it. Well, I always absorb it. How will I not absorb it now? Today is different. God recreates every moment from anew. I was just recreated. I can change. I can be different. I can change habits of it doesn't make a difference how many years. I have the ability to change. And keep saying that and keep breathing and keep saying it and keep breathing until the temptation subsides. It will come back. Don't worry. It will come back. Not going to give up so fast. But moment by moment, you're protecting yourself from that negative space, which is so harmful to you. Becca?
I just wanted to bring up in connection with what you're saying. I listened to a teaching about Sarah when she laughed. This one rabbi, it's maybe from one sage's point of view anyway, that Sarah laughed and the angel asked her, why did you laugh? And she said, I didn't laugh. The explanation was that she was already thinking, she said, I didn't laugh because that was who I was before. I'm not that person now. See what I'm saying? And that had a profound effect on me because I have this goal in my life, and you were right. I see, I don't see myself achieving it, but if I can see myself there already, that I'm not that person anymore. Now, at least in my mind, I'm already this other person, then I can start acting like that. And then it's like somebody said, why did you do that? I didn't do that because that's who I was before. I'm not that anymore. So does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I understood what you're saying. I think so. I think sometimes I have a friend of mine telling me a story, some woman that was very rude to her. And then a few minutes later, she saw the woman again. And the woman said, apologizing for that woman that was here before. She was in a really bad mood. She's gone. Don't worry. Which might sound like a flippant joke, but my friend understood that was a sincere apology. And that's sort of like what was happening. There was someone else in that body. Someone else had taken over and the woman's gone, So yeah, I get it. I think you're right. I absolutely think you're right. Now, another little point before we get into the main idea is If you are trying to work on something and you know there are triggers in your environment, the triggers might be certain people. It just might be certain things in your environment that aren't people, but triggers. Try to change the environment to remove those temptations, to remove those triggers, to remove those points that get to you. And if you're trying to lose weight, it's not a good idea to have a house full of junk food and all the foods you like best and try to lose weight. Now, again, it's possible, but why make it harder for yourself? So the same thing, if you don't want to indulge in these unwanted emotions and behaviors and ego and anger and impatience, don't create situations that are triggers. For example, if you're a very impatient person, don't make a doctor's appointment downtown when you know there's going to be such crazy traffic. It'll just drive you crazy. You'll feel so impatient. You got to go when you know the traffic's going to be light, because you don't need a trigger for the trait you're working on. If there's toxic people in your environment, people who indulge in addictions of anger and sarcasm and belittlement, try to get them out if you can. And if you can't, build walls to protect yourself so their energy doesn't penetrate and pull you down. It's important to believe it's possible. Sometimes people feel, I can't make any changes. I mean, this person, I can't get rid of that person. I can't change this. I'm just stuck. But I think we have to believe that God will help. We only see a wall. He'll find a window. Big things and little things. God, sometimes we're struggling with something and he makes it so easy. It might seem like a very small thing, but I'm going out of town this week. I have my special needs son, and the hardest day was Saturday, Shabbos, especially when my husband's, he's the rabbi of the synagogue. In synagogue, he can't have my son there. And I couldn't figure out what to do. And I tried all these, like every avenue was closed. And I'm like, should I not go or whatever? I was thinking of someone I knew that could want any special needs. You have to have someone that knows how to handle him. And I thought of someone, but she lives very far and it's Sabbath. So he has to walk and he's no way is he going to make it. And I'm like, keep trying to convince myself I should ask this lady and keep coming back to the bottom line fact. He is not going to be able to walk to her house. And then suddenly, yesterday, it dinged in my brain. Oh, I'll ask so-and-so. She'll for sure do it for me. And she can do it. It's no problem. And that's exactly what happened. And after Shabbos, I asked her, yeah, no problem. And da-da-da. And I was like, wow, that was so simple. But I spent 2 weeks trying to solve this unsolvable problem and just calling this one and calling that one and trying this and trying that and trying this and trying that. And nothing worked. It was like a wall. And as soon as Hashem wanted, ding, so simply solved. And I said, I think that's a metaphor for a lot of other things. So sometimes, like I'm saying, if there's a toxin in your environment or a toxic person in your environment, you have to believe God's going to help. You've got to try your best to remove the pollutants. And if you feel, well, it's impossible, give God more credit than that. He's far more creative. For him, there's nothing like impossible. Just you do your part and let God does his. Has anyone here ever successfully done this? Recognized there was something in their environment that was a trigger and successfully changed their environment to remove that trigger?
So I'll share this. I don't know that I've ever shared this before. I think maybe with you, like on a sidebar note, that my dad has paranoid schizophrenia. And so, it can be very challenging because when he's very clear and there are moments where he is very lucid and I think he's amazing and we have great conversations and can be a very loving relationship. And then it's like, then there'll be a phone call and it's out of the blue and it's not him. It's this other version of him. And so I find myself taken aback sometimes. And I just had this situation happen and I was like, man, why did I let myself go down that hole? And I was so shocked because he's been doing so well. And I was just like, I didn't have my normal boundaries up. I didn't have my normal walls up. Some of those had went down a little bit and I just had to erect them and, hey, I'm trying to be respectful, but I need to get off the phone now, and you're having a hard time letting me get off the phone, so I love you, bye. That type of thing. And then, and then it's just like understanding that we're in this different space now, and I don't know when I'll see this other version of him again. But just making sure that I think, preparing myself that, I can't allow myself to get too laxed and too relaxed in that he's better and doing better, and that you have to stay, kind of vigilant whenever you're, have people in your life that aren't able to remain consistent for whatever reason.
Absolutely. And I'm sure we all can relate to that, because we probably all have in our own version something like that. I think we all probably do. And it's just really, like wanting to just freely relax in the relationship, and in the back of your head having the guards ready at their post, that if need be, the walls come down. If need be, you're protected, and sort of protected by being somewhat detached. You've like detached yourself somewhat, so it's his pain that you feel bad for him, but it's not yours. And that's a very delicate balancing act of, this is my, like in this case, this is my father, and I have an obligation to respect him. And of course, we've discussed how for Noahide, they have responsibility to honor their parents. So I have a biblical, God wants me to respect him. And at the same time, I can respect him, but detached. So I can have compassion for his pain, but I don't absorb it and get sucked into it and get hurt by it. And that is definitely a balancing act. And definitely, like you said, just, okay, I have to go. I love you and I have to go. Bye. Sounded just what you needed to do then. Absolutely. And sometimes that is how we control our environment, by not slamming the phone down, but in a more respectful way, hanging up the phone on people that are not in a space that they're going to be good for us. Becca, did you want to add something?
No, I just put my thumbs up at what you and her were saying. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Anyone else? Anyone else has successfully done something in their environment to remove a painful trigger, to remove something that was pulling them down?
Yes, Mrs. Toren. For me, what it works for me now, because before I was thinking, how can I detach myself from toxic people? Now I started to think in a different dimension. Like I feel my soul, like I'm a soul. I see myself not a body or flesh. I see myself as a soul. So it means they cannot hurt me because I go with the wind. They cannot see me. I feel invisible. So that's what I started to think. Then I've noticed when I feel like that, to the trigger, to some people, who trigger, the anger, the hate, the pain. And I feel like, I don't really feel the pain. I don't know why, but I did try to experiment that way. I feel that I'm a soul and nobody can hurt me because I'm a soul.
That's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful protection. I'm a soul. That's my essence and being, and nobody can hurt a soul. So I'm impervious to the hurt. The hurt doesn't touch me. The hurt doesn't hurt me. It can only hurt a body. But in essence, I'm a soul. Souls can't get hurt. And just holding on that vision really strong, like you're saying, I'm a soul, I'm invisible, I'm a soul, I'm the wind. All those visions are just helping flesh out this perspective of self. And that's so true, that in our essence and being, we're soul. And of course, no human or anything in the world, doesn't have to be a person, nothing can hurt. Everything in the world, an expression of God's energy. God doesn't want to hurt me. So nothing can hurt me. If I believe in the world, I'm human and the world can be very painful. It could hurt a lot. And if I believe in God, I know the world is all God's energy. There's no, like in Judaism, it's not like the forces of good versus the forces of evil. There's no forces of evil. Whatever appears as evil is another manifestation of God's energy. designed to be our challenges for us to overcome them, designed to be the weights to us to build our muscles of connection to God. So I'm a soul. I'm a piece of God's energy in this world, which is also all God's energy. Nothing has any power. Nothing can hurt. Nothing can touch. It's me as part of God's reality. So having that vision, that visualization, especially I think maybe if you're in a situation where you're going to be with someone who could be quite triggering or toxic, is really good like thoughts to think beforehand to prep yourself. So you are like completely detached and just like, it's just so meaningless. It's just so meaningless. Doesn't hurt you at all. They're just so meaningless. So that's great. That's a great idea. So what I feel is the best way I've changed, as I said, is based on this concept of the sages, that our actions form our inner reality. Now, obviously, in modern psychology, a lot of times it goes in the other direction about how our inner reality is really what's creating our actions. And there's truth to that. But it's very, very powerful when we take responsibility and we take control and we understand it works in the other direction. That my action can form my inner reality. And it's like we can choose to fashion a mask. Whatever mask we want. The mask of patience, the mask of tolerance, the mask of compassion, the mask of kindness, the mask of other-centeredness. And I'm calling the mask because you're like, that's not me at all. I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm none of those nice traits. Maybe you might think that, but that's okay. You can wear a mask. And as we wear this mask and very religiously hold this mask close to our face and keep wearing it and keep wearing it and keep wearing it, the mask becomes the man. And we really, really change on the inside. Like I've seen for myself, this is true for all good traits you want to acquire. Act it and it'll become you. There was an incident with the third Lubavitcher Rebbe. You might not view this as a trait, but I think it's the same concept. It was referred to as a tzemach tzedek. And a man came to him and the man complained that he's unhappy. And tzemach tzedek said, so act happy. And the man said, but I'm not happy. And so I said, but when you act happy, you will feel happiness. The happiness will come. So a person can say, well, I get active, but why would I feel happy if I act happy? I'm not happy. But if you try it, you'll see it works. It works. I've tried it. It works. It really works. Why does it work that way? Because of this rule of that the sages express on how our nature is, that from our actions are molded our inner reality. So when we are acting happy, and we truly are not happy, but we're acting it and we're acting it and we're acting it, we start feeling happy on the inside. And as for myself, I struggle very much with impatience. Here I am, a mother, a teacher, professions that require a lot of patience. And I just acted it. Didn't feel it at all, but acted and acted and acted it. And I saw how I changed. And it was really cool because it's very liberating to change. It's very empowering to know you can change. Because very often we feel stuck. Like, no, I can't. This is me. Take it or leave it. This is me. Love me as I am. Professor Feuerstein wrote a book. He did a lot of work with Down syndrome children and adults. Or Down syndrome children and adults that had other issues, but, similar situations. And I never read the book, but I liked the title. The title was, If You Love Me, Don't Accept Me As I Am. Like a lot of times, oh, love me, accept me as I am. And it's like, no, I love you. And therefore I don't accept you as you are. And I'm saying here, of course, in ourselves, it's self-reflective. I want everyone to accept me as I am. Okay, so I'm not such a nice person. Okay, so I'm rough. Okay, so I do this wrong. Okay, so I do this wrong. Well, if you love me, you'll accept me like this. No, love yourself and don't accept yourself as you are. Demand change. Demand change. Well, how do I change? Act it. Act it. Act it. Act it. Act it. Think of a super patient, kind, generous person, whatever you're trying to become. Think of someone you know that really shines in that way and act as she or he would act. Or maybe act as if someone that you really cared about their opinion was in the room with you. Imagine your grandmother or your father or your mentor or your principal or some beloved teacher is just watching you. Like if someone's around, you're much better with your kids, right? Someone's watching you, it just pulls out the better ability in you to mother patiently and calmly. And so just keep envisioning that person watching. Not a person you think would understand and you could just be yourself. No. Envision someone that you respect and want them to think highly of you and where you cannot be yourself. So don't be yourself. Oh, that's so horrible. No, it's great. Don't be yourself. Be a better version of self. Be a better self. Be the self you want to be and the self you can be if you keep walking that walk and acting that act. The hard part is remembering. Like, let's say again, you want to be patient, or you want to be compassionate, or you wanted to be focused on your children, or you wanted to be empathetic. And it's like just so easy to slip back into me, who I guess isn't any of those qualities, because if you were, you wouldn't have to work on them. So you have to remember. That's the hard part. You have to remember, because the most natural thing is behave the way you behave for the past 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years. But again, if it worked, you wouldn't be trying to change. So you have to force yourself to remember and respond differently. And then gradually, it takes time, but it doesn't take as long as you think it's going to take. The mask becomes the man. You will be what you're acting. You will truly be happy, content, other-centered, calm, patient, loving. It sounds like too easy. No, it's really how we work. It's really how God wired us. So again, I'm saying the hard part is often to remember. Any tips how to remember that you are changing and you are doing it differently this time?
Maybe if we can, sometimes if I really want to remember something, I have a dry erase board in my kitchen where I will see it every morning, and I write in big bold letters, like when I wanted to remember to say a blessing on the food and drink or whatever, I put that in. And it was maybe a little bit embarrassing when the maintenance men came in to take care of something in the apartment, and there's these big bold words, Rebecca, pray before you eat.
That's okay. Maybe it inspired them to think a little more before they ate.
Or sometimes I do that visualization and I'll think, what is your goal? Who do you want to be? What kind of person do you want to be? What would that person do? And then think, I am that person. I mean, knowing literally I'm not there yet, but in my mind, I have to think that is who I am, and therefore that's what I will act like.
That's great. Visualization's great. If you take the time and really visualize yourself being loving, being patient, being kind, being generous, being compassionate, being self-controlled. A lot of it all has to do with self-control. Being self-controlled, and you're just so self-controlled, and you're so self-controlled. Not eating that unhealthy junk food, eating and visualizing yourself eating all that good stuff. And just, yes, that visualization, that's a great way to remember. Because you're sort of like making it like, muscle memory, and so to speak, in your mind. So that's very good. I think that's a great idea. And I think the whiteboard's a great idea. Like big signs all over your house of course, after a while, we'll stop seeing it, but it's a whiteboard. So you can erase it and do it with different colors or something so you'll notice it again for a few days. I think that's a great idea. Anyone else? Any other tips how to remember that you're going to act differently? Not be different. Just, yeah, you tell yourself, I'm not being different. I'm just acting different. I'm just doing my part, which is acting calm, acting centered, acting happy, acting controlled, the rest, whatever. All I have to do is acting. So that's like sort of nice to think of because that doesn't seem as hard. Like change seems very hard. Acting, we act. Just for today, just in this situation, just with this person. I just have to act this way. And then as we act it, the amazing cool thing is we become it. So I like Becca's 2 ideas of how to remember with the whiteboard signs and with the visualizations. Anyone else have any tips they could think of how to remember that you are going to not be different, God forbid, just act different?
So I have an idea to share. I have been overwhelmed just in the past like couple years especially, and so I started trying to think like, what can I do to help this situation, and minimalization kind of like came to mind, and it may sound like very small, but it is helping me to act differently because I'm not as stressed, I'm not as focused on moving the clutter from one place to the next because there's not as much clutter, and it's been a whole thing that my family went through that we went through.
Throwing out, giving away,
giving stuff away, just and not buying stuff that I think that I need whenever I don't need it necessarily, or just being more simplified. Just like you said with the food in the house, it's like if it's not in the house, I can't eat it. Just those type of things. So basically trying to set myself up for success. I
like that because I'm also thinking on a more spiritual level, stuff. You're saying clutter, stuff. It's all like a lot of physical anchors that anchor us to the physical very much. And when we're clean of it, we're like, again, a little more like Jenny's vision of that floating soul. We're more in our soul space than in our anchor to a lot of junk, anchor to a lot of stuff, physical space. So you're sort of detaching from the physical, and that lets you be like that beautiful vision Jenny was saying of like that soul, unencumbered soul. So that's I like that. I think that is a good idea. I think that's a really good idea. And it all does bog us down. We didn't do this last week, but in the chapter of Ethics of Fathers that we were doing, we never got to it. But one of the sayings there was, the more possessions, the more worry. Very basic. The more possessions, the more worry. And it's just like all this stuff takes our energy and drains it and depletes it. And if we don't have the stuff, again, not meaning God forbid someone should be deprived what they need, but if we don't have the unnecessary stuff, and it's hard sometimes to figure out what's unnecessary and what's necessary, but if we can just give away, remove, minimize, I get it. I say the sages say the more possessions, the more stuff, the more things, the more worries. So we definitely want to be free of that and open to focus on ourself as soul, like Jenny said, and our self-growth, and are detached from physical and focused on inner, character development and spiritual development. I think that's great. So I have to go now. I guess we're over our hour and have to go. So we're going to stop, obviously, in the middle of this to be continued next week. But my challenge to you is over this week to try to figure out a way to do this. To try to think of some trait you'd like to change, and just tell yourself, all I need to do is act it. Like change sounds overwhelming, so then we're shut down and don't do anything. I don't need to change. I just need to act it. Literally envision, like Becca was saying about a visualization. Literally visualize that mass or like Becca said, which was the same thing, visualize this, how I'm going to be, but very detailed vision, and just like wear that vision of me, I wouldn't say in 5 years, me in 3 months, me in 3 months, being for 3 months focused on patience, compassion, calmness, other-centeredness, tolerance, giving attention to others, love, nurture, whatever nice, beautiful things you're looking for, whatever ugly stuff you want to replace, and just wear the mask, get into that visualization, get into that space. This is me, or I'm wearing what I will be, and as I wear it, I will be it. So that's the challenge of the week. So hopefully everybody will have good stuff to report next week on how they wore their masks. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Dixie, for jumping in when you came, because every minute's great and you got what you were supposed to get. Glad you joined.
Did you start early?
No.
I thought usually at 7:30 at my time, and it's 7:30.
Did your clock change?
I don't think so. Oh well, I'll
I'm wondering if
forget
your
it.
clock changed. No, this was the time. In other words, by me now it's 8:35. So this was our regular time, but I don't know.
Yeah, 7:30 by me.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's weird.
I might, yeah. Take care. It's still nice to see your name up there.
Thank you.
Be well. Have a
Shabbat
great
tov.
week. Shavua tov. Take care,
Thank
Becky,
you.
Becca, Jenny, Christelle. Thank you so much for joining. Be well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.